My name is Kaylee and I've been meaning to create an updated version on my video about Homo erectus, which is possibly the most important species in our genus. In the past, I have accidentally said Homo erectus more than once on this channel. And I'm just gonna warn you, there's a high chance that that's gonna happen throughout this video as well. So we know that Homo erectus has been credited with the longest reign of any of the species in the Homo genus. It is actually quite insane how long they were around. They emerged around 2 million years ago, and the youngest fossils of Homo erectus date back to approximately 117,000 and 108,000 years ago. In the nearly 2 million years that they were roaming on this planet, Homo erectus laid the groundwork for all other human species that came after it. They were the first to travel continents, to use and create fire, possibly creating shelters, clothing, and possibly creating even the first artistic expressions. But before we dive into all there is to know and learn about Homo erectus, I would like to take a moment to tell you all about my upcoming Turkey tour in September. For 11 days, we will be seeing the most incredible ancient sites the country of Turkey has to offer. We will be seeing Göbekli Tepe, Sayburç, Kilsikoyan Necropolis, the ancient city of Haran, the Bazda Cave, the ancient city of Shuaib, Sefer Tepe. We will take a boat tour over the Euphrates. We will be seeing Karahan Tepe and Sogmatar. Mount Nemrut has been added to this tour. We will be seeing the fairy chimneys at Cappadocia and visit Kaymakli underground city. And we will again go to the mysterious green stone at Hattusha. And I would like you to join me on this incredible journey. To book your spot or for more information, click the Turkey tour link in the description down below. So back to Homo erectus. There are numerous possible subspecies of Homo erectus. These are Pekinensis, Ergaster, Soloensis, Georgicus, and Tutafelensis. But for the sake of this video, we will just refer to Homo erectus to simplify it all and not make it unnecessarily complicated. Because scientists are really good at making things complicated, and it's my job to simplify things. So there's been some debate over the decades if these subspecies should be seen as separate species or if they should all just be considered Homo erectus. I'm not an expert, and it's not my place to discuss this beyond simply just mentioning their various names. So let's dive into the enigmatic species of Homo erectus, the first upright humans, our evolutionary ancestors. When and where were the first fossilized bones discovered that led to the discovery of the species of Homo erectus? Well, at first, it wasn't thought that this was a human ancestor, and the first bones of this species were not found in Africa. And by the time of the discovery, the world of anthropology was of the belief that humans originated in Asia, the old out of Asia theory. The world was a very, very different place when the first fossils of erectus were discovered. And you'll notice that throughout this video. Science, archaeology, and anthropology have come a very long way since. So, Eugene Dubois, a Dutch surgeon, has been credited with discovering the first remains of a Homo erectus individual. This happened in Indonesia in 1891. Although back then, Indonesia was known as the Dutch East Indies. Back then, Indonesia was a colony of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. There's a lot that can be said about this bit of history, but that's not what this video is about. I focus on ancient history and human evolution. So I'm not going to go into the colonial history of the Netherlands, my country. It's just not part of this video. So let's continue. A few years after Dubois discovered the remains, he named the species Pithecanthropus erectus, which means erect ape man. Or upright ape man, if you will, so that I use the other funny word one time less, you know, because I expect to get a lot of erectus comments. Fun! Pithecanthropus erectus at the time was the most primitive and had the smallest brain of all known early human species. And please do note that at this point in time there had not been any early human fossils discovered in the entirety of Africa. So at this time in the late 1800s, it was believed that humans originated in Asia. So as time went by, Pithecanthropus erectus was actually placed in the Homo genus, and from then on, it has been known as Homo erectus. As you can imagine, there are stone tools that slightly predate Homo erectus in Africa, China, and Indonesia. This is a common occurrence. We often find tools that are older or younger than the fossils of a specific species or culture. This is because their tools are often much better preserved and therefore easier to discover. While in many locations of the world, bones disintegrate and could possibly have left no trace at all. It is a good thing to remember that the fossil record is incomplete. This has everything to do with the fact that for bones to become fossilized, it requires rare conditions. Climatic conditions have a lot of influence on remains. For example, in a rainforest climate, it is extremely difficult for remains to become fossilized because of the humidity and the amount of rain throughout the year, which causes the rapid decay of dead organisms. The best conditions for remains to become fossilized is if they were buried immediately in a swamp or a lake, and the second best conditions are a cold and dry climate. So because of all of this and the rare conditions that, don't occur too often, only a very small fraction of the primates and the hominids that have ever lived have become fossilized. I often get comments like, why aren't they finding more fossils? Or why do they only find certain fossil fragments like, teeth? Well, now you know why this is, and teeth are a lot denser than bones, which is why they're usually preserved better, or at least preserved for a longer period of time, compared to the bones of the same individual. So yeah, the first bones of Homo erectus were discovered in Indonesia. Wait, let me do that again. The first bones of Homo erectus were discovered in Indonesia. Does this mean that this is where erectus originates from? Well, the answer to that is simply no. But where did Homo erectus come from, and from which time are these earliest fossils? The oldest current known fossils of Homo erectus are found on the continent of Africa. There's a possibility of 2 locations where the oldest Homo erectus fossils were discovered, dating to around the same time. The first possibility for the oldest Homo erectus fossils is in Ethiopia. A jawbone belonging to an infant was discovered at the Garba IV archaeological site in the Ethiopian highlands, and this jawbone has been dated to at least 2 million years ago. The second possibility is the skull fragment of a child discovered in the Draaimolen Paleo cave system near Johannesburg, which is located in the area known as the Cradle of Humankind in South Africa. And this skull fragment has been dated to be around 2 million years old. More fossils of Homo erectus were discovered in East Turkana in the country of Kenya, and dated from approximately 1.9 million years ago. Homo erectus is credited as the longest living of all human species, although, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there are researchers that believe that Homo erectus had many different subspecies. These subspecies could have been lineages that became more distinct over time, still falling into the Homo erectus lineage. There is some debate about this, and really, for me, it's not clear to make a precise statement, so for the most part of this video, I will just refer to these lineages as Homo erectus to keep it as simple as possible. So the current latest data from all hominins who existed before Homo erectus show that these hominins all lived in Africa before Homo erectus evolved. But the strange thing is that almost as soon as Homo erectus appeared in our current fossil record, it nearly immediately expanded out of Africa into Western Asia and traveled onwards to East Asia and eventually even Indonesia. One of the findings that proved this, beyond a doubt, was the discovery at Dmanisi in Georgia, which is a country in Western Asia. And with this particular Georgia, I do not mean the state of Georgia in North America, but I really do mean the country of Georgia in West Asia. These fossils that were discovered in Georgia date from approximately 1,850,000 years ago. This is about 150,000 years, give or take, after their first emergence in Africa. At the Shangchen site in Lantian, central China, they discovered Yuan Muman, which are the fossilized remains of China's oldest Homo erectus individual, dating from approximately 1.7 million years ago. And then there's the discovery of the fossil known as Sangiran II, which is an upper cranium of a Homo erectus found in Sangiran on the island of Java in Indonesia. This particular fossil is around 1.6 million years old. There are more fossils that were discovered on the island of Java in Indonesia from around 1,490,000 years old. So there's more than enough reason to believe that Homo erectus, within 500,000 years of its emergence in Africa, spread all the way into Indonesia, slowly expanding their habitat, and it is possible that this is the actual reason for the supposed subspecies or different distinct lineages, as they spread into such a large area that over time they evolved slightly differently, which eventually led to distinct differences between erectus populations in Africa, West Asia, and Southeast Asia. Their habitat really spread far and wide, as fossils have been discovered in South Africa, Kenya, Spain, Georgia, China, and the island of Java in Indonesia. So now that we know where Homo erectus came from, where the fossils have been discovered, and in which time frame they lived, we can take a look at their general appearance. As I said earlier, there are some regional differences that over time may have attributed to distinct differences in appearance of Homo erectus living on different parts of the planet. And of course, as you can imagine, the earlier fossils will look a lot more primitive in nature than the later fossils, because as a species, they evolved over time as well. It's not like, hey, we are a species and now evolution stops. Just like with us Homo sapiens, we're still evolving. Some people may not be evolving though. So let's start with the appearance of the skull. Homo erectus had a face that was more flat than the hominins before it. They had a pronounced brow ridge and the skull was quite flat. From the fossil record, we learned that Homo erectus was most likely the first hominin to have a projecting nose, where the earlier hominins like Homo habilis most likely still had a flat nose. So I would like to quickly note that the sizes of the Homo erectus fossils differ quite a bit, and some fossils are small and others are quite large. This also is evident in the skulls and the average brain sizes. The brain size varies from between 546 to 1261 cubic centimeters, which is a larger size difference than we see in modern humans. You know, us, Homo sapiens. So like I just mentioned, Homo erectus varies quite a bit when it comes to its size. The smallest fossils are about 146 centimeters in height, weighing around 40 kilograms, while the largest fossils are around 185 centimeters in height and would weigh around 68 kilograms. Which, if I may note, is really lean for the largest Homo erectus bodies, like no body fat lean, toned lean. I'm not even that lean. Holy hell. It seems like there isn't much of a size difference between males and females, just like we see in modern humans, where on average, males will be built slightly larger than females. This is actually unlike with apes, where the sizes between males and females differ much more. As I mentioned earlier, these size differences are because of a few different reasons. Regional differences in the climate, the natural conditions, the plant and wildlife will all have attributed greatly to the diversity of Homo erectus and its size. Homo erectus was the first hominin to have similar limb and torso proportions as modern humans, which does suggest that their bodies were much better adapted to walking upright on 2 feet in an open environment, instead of being adapted to swing from branch to branch in the trees. So this is where Homo erectus differs with Homo habilis and the earlier Australopithecines, as these latter two really still had features that were related to climbing. The shoulders of Homo erectus seem to be much more like modern humans, which suggests, according to some anthropologists, the ability for high-speed throwing, like possibly spears or rocks. Most likely rocks. The spine of Homo erectus seemed to have a modern human-like curvature, with 5 lumbar vertebrae between the ribcage and the pelvis and 12 thoracic vertebrae between the ribcage and the neck, just like us, modern humans. As you can imagine, it is unclear if Homo erectus was covered in body hair or if it was already lost before their emergence. Fossilized remains can't really tell us what their skin looked like, if it was covered in hair or which color the skin was. Bones simply cannot give us that information, and these bones on average are a bit too old to extract DNA from it, and the bones that are young enough to possibly extract DNA from it are from climatic conditions that DNA is already decayed. It sucks, but it happens. So according to genetic analysis, it is suggested that high activity in the melanocortin-1 receptor, which produces dark skin, would be dating back to some 1.2 million years ago. So it could very well be that Homo erectus started losing the hairs on the skin slowly as time went on due to the climates in which it was living, and developing the darker skin would protect them against harmful UV radiation. There is a chance that the populations of Homo erectus living in higher latitudes would develop a lighter skin over time to prevent vitamin D deficiency. As someone living in Northern Europe and been sort of trapped under a grey blanket of clouds since September, it's currently February, who is currently taking a vitamin D supplement every day, I absolutely understand the need to do whatever you can to cope and maintain good levels of vitamin D. And no, not that type of vitamin D. I actually mean vitamin D like from the sun, not your dick. Thank you. So there's a Homo erectus individual discovered in Turkey who lived between 500,000 and 300,000 years ago, who was diagnosed with the earliest known case of tuberculous meningitis, which is usually seen in dark-skinned people living in higher latitudes due to vitamin D deficiency. Finds like these are incredibly important and show the regional differences that developed over time between all Homo erectus populations. Another of these differences is that in the East Asian populations, the outer layer of the bones was extraordinarily thick compared to the other populations. And in general, it seems that the outer layer of the bones were already thicker in Homo erectus than, for instance, Homo habilis or the Australopithecines who came before it. It's unclear if this is a genetic thing that's sprung on by the climatic conditions, a genetic mutation, or that the environment alone played a part in this happening. So now that we know a bit what they looked like, how similar they were compared to modern humans, and how much they already differed from the Australopithecines, we can look into what we know about their lives. Like, for instance, their social structures, the food they ate to survive, and the inventions they made, like the stone tools, use of fire, construction of shelters, clothes, and the fact that they had to be seafarers to reach the islands in Indonesia, the evidence we found for them taking care of their sick and injured, and the art and possible rituals that we have uncovered. There is fossilized evidence of multiple trackways found in Kenya from a group of at least 20 individuals that were made some 1.5 million years ago. It seems that Homo erectus groups tended to avoid areas with a high carnivore density. These trackways do suggest hunting or foraging parties. It seems that Homo erectus children had faster brain growth rates when compared to us modern humans. This means that they most likely did not need to put in the same amount of maternal investment and child-caring behaviors like us modern humans, which would have helped them survive back then, without a doubt. More than this rudimentary information on their social structure is not known. Of course it isn't much, but when you think about the fact that there isn't much to go on, it's actually quite amazing that we already know this bit of information. So when looking at the food they ate, there is a thing of importance: the increased brain size and the possibility of a decreased gut size. So why is it important to note this? Well, decreased gut size could play a key role into the increased brain size, as the ape gut is used to synthesize fat by fermenting plant matter, and this was replaced by dietary animal fat, which would in theory allow for more energy to be diverted to the growth of the brain. And the diet of Homo erectus would be a lot more meatier, with a high calorie intake, which could lead to increased brain size as well, when compared to, the Australopithecines. Lots of sites where they found Homo erectus fossils, researchers also found medium to large game fossils, like for instance elephants, rhinos, hippos, and boars. But the diet varied a lot depending on the region Homo erectus lived in. Like for instance, in Israel they ate around 55 different types of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and they ate amphibians, reptiles, birds, and invertebrates, as well as elephant and deer. I said Israel there. The article and the paper I used as my source said Israel, therefore I said Israel. I have no clue what to call that area, sorry. In Kenya, alongside the elephants, rhinos, and hippos, they also ate turtles, crocodiles, and catfish as well. And on Java in Indonesia, they most likely gathered fish and shellfish. You can see that they adapted to their environment and their diet changed depending on their location, which in turn could have an effect on their regional developments, eventually resulting in these distinct differences between groups living in different areas. Homo erectus is credited with the invention of the Acheulean stone tools. They were the first to make lithic flakes and hand axes bifacial tools like knives and cleavers. Most of these hand axes were multi-purpose tools, which were quite large and heavy with sharp chiseled out edges. It could have been used to cut meats, wood, and plants. The oldest Acheulean tools found in Africa are from the Garba IV site, which is a part of a cluster of archaeological sites known as Melka Kunture in Ethiopia, and they are between 2 million and 1,950,000 years old, while the oldest Acheulean tools outside of Africa are dated to not be older than 1 million years. This does not mean that Homo erectus populations outside of Africa didn't create or use stone tools, because of course Homo erectus also created Oldowan stone tools as well. Although they were not the first species to create the Oldowan stone tools, as this has been attributed to the Australopithecines at least 3.3 million years ago, which does indeed mean that the Stone Age actually predates all human species. On Java, we have different types of tools created by Homo erectus from shells, and there are spherical stones measuring 6 to 12 centimeters in diameter found in African and Chinese Lower Paleolithic sites. These spherical stones might indicate that these were used as bolas, which is a type of throwing weapon used with two spherical stones as weights on the ends of interconnected cords that were used to catch animals by entangling their legs, making it impossible for the animal to escape. If these were indeed used as bolas, this would highly suggest that Homo erectus had string and cordage technology as well. It is believed that Homo erectus was the first hominin to have used fire, but it's unclear when this occurred. This is due to the fact that evidence of campfires is very, very rare and usually extremely poorly preserved, especially over long periods of times like hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. The oldest known fire sites are in Kenya and South Africa and date from 1.7 million years and 1.5 million years ago. These fire sites are believed to have been created by transporting naturally occurring fires into caves and maintaining these naturally occurring fires for as long as possible, or sporadically when the opportunity arose. Maintaining a fire would require the knowledge of using animal dung. It's not necessarily believed this was done already at the start of them using fire, but over time they would have learned this and used this technique to maintain their fires for a longer period of time. The oldest known hearths in recorded history are found, according to the paper, in the country of Israel. Don't come for me in the comments, I'm just reciting what the paper said, and date from approximately 700,000 years ago. It's found in multiple layers of sediment in an area close to water, which are both unusual characteristics of naturally occurring fires and indicate the creation and maintaining of a hearth. Around 400,000 years ago, fire becomes more widely used. Most likely occurred in all these different places over time, and it was not invented in one place and then spread slowly across the globe, but everyone would have invented it themselves. So the historians believe that because of the widespread use of fire and creating artificial light, the communities would start to socialize around the fire, and it is believed that the emergence of languages started here, around these fires. This has everything to do with the fact that apes were awake from sunrise to sunset, and with artificial light, Homo erectus would lengthen the time of them being awake, which gave them the time to develop social skills. Now it's time to look into the possible construction of shelters by the hands of Homo erectus. In 1962, a circle made of volcanic rocks was found in the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. Piles of rock up to 23 centimeters in height were found, and British paleoanthropologist Mary Leakey suggested that these piles of rock could have been used to support poles that were stuck in the ground for a simple hut. This all dates back to approximately 1.75 million years ago and is the oldest claimed evidence for architecture. These same building techniques are still used by nomadic tribes living in modern-day Africa, building low-lying rock walls that would support branches or poles, which were then covered with grass or animal skin. So what do we know about Homo erectus when it comes to clothing? As you can imagine, the invention of wearing clothes is very unclear, and it is sort of believed by historians that some 3 million years ago the first pieces of clothing would have started to be used to compensate for the lack of body hair, which would keep the body naturally warm. The oldest known use of animal hides that could have been used for clothing, and the oldest known hide scrapers, date back to approximately 780,000 years ago, although it is unclear if this was used for clothing in particular or for their shelters. So we can't be sure unless we have a time machine. So if someone can ask Doc to fix the flux capacitor, it would be greatly appreciated. Like seriously, where is Doc when you need him? I need to get back to the past already, and then get back to the future. Next up, we have the possible invention of seafaring. This is thought to be another Homo erectus invention due to the fact that Acheulean artifacts dating to approximately 1 million years ago have been discovered on isolated islands that were not connected to the mainland in the Pleistocene. So for the people in my comments saying, well, the sea levels were lower and so the land was higher, these islands were still not connected to the mainland during the Pleistocene. The only way to reach those islands was by the use of rafts, because there was no other way to reach the islands of Flores, Timor and Java in Indonesia. Homo erectus might have also crossed the Strait of Gibraltar between Morocco and Spain, making them the first European mariners as well. There is some evidence that Homo erectus took care of their sick. One of these examples is the discovery of a skull dating from approximately 1,770,000 years ago that lost all but one tooth, either due to age or a gum disease, and this individual seemed to have survived for quite some time after they lost their teeth. They probably ate soft plant materials and animals with the assistance from members of the community, as they were unable to chew themselves. It's unclear if it was chewed for them or if it was ground with stones. It's just, it was already soft by the time they would eat it. There's also the fossilized remain of an individual known as Turkana boy, dating from 1.5 million years ago, that had juvenile spinal disc herniation. And as this boy grew larger, this resulted in scoliosis, which most likely restricted this boy in walking and other daily activities. Yet he survived into adolescence, which suggests that there was an advanced form of care in his community. So now we've reached the point where we look into the created art and possible rituals from Homo erectus. This is one of the things I'm very interested in. I do personally believe that this is connected to the creation of fire and the lengthening of their waking time, which gave them the ability to develop these things like social skills and art, which suggests the ability of symbolic thinking. But that was my personal opinion. There is a shell found on the island of Java in Indonesia. It's a pseudodon shell, which is a fossilized freshwater shell that has zigzag engravings that date back to 546,000 and 436,000 years ago. And it is possibly the earliest evidence that we have of art. There is an ox rib that was found in France that had engraved lines on it that look similar to a meander design that has been found in modern human Upper Paleolithic cave art. Ostrich eggshell beads discovered in northwestern Africa are the earliest dick-shaped. I just said dick-shaped. I was trying to be so professional. Ostrich eggshell beads discovered in northwestern Africa are the earliest disc-shaped beads ever found, and these were found with a number of Acheulean lithics, and beads similar to these have been found in France and, according to the paper, the country of Israel as well. Again, don't come for me in the comments, I'm just saying what the paper said. Then there is the Venus of Tantan artifact found in Morocco, and the Venus of Berakat Ram artifacts found in, again, the country of Israel. That could be the oldest representations of the human form. Homo erectus most likely collected red-colored pigments like ochre on purpose, as many of these lumps were discovered in Tanzania dating to approximately 1.4 million years ago, and they were found with the skull cap of a hominid, most likely a Homo erectus. Some lumps were discovered in Spain as well, at Ambrona, which is a paleontological and archaeological site, and these ochres date to approximately 424,000 years ago. It's unclear if they used the ochre for any practical applications, but these collections seem to indicate that Homo erectus had a sense for aesthetics, as later human species like Neanderthals and Homo sapiens used ochre as body paint and cave paint, although it is not known if Homo erectus did this as well. What's also unclear is the possibility of Homo erectus developing and using language. The part of the brain that we modern humans use for language seems to have been present in them, and the hyoid bone is similar to all other Homo species, including ours. For those who don't know, the hyoid bone is a horseshoe-shaped bone and is situated between the chin and the thyroid cartilage. It's sort of the bone that supports the tongue, which makes it possible to control the vocal tract when it comes to pitch and volume. It does seem that in Homo heidelbergensis, yes, Homo heidelbergensis, in the Dutch pronunciation, to mess with all my German and American viewers that hate it when I do this, and I will keep doing it just because I love doing it. But yeah, it does seem that in Homo heidelbergensis, this bone looks most similar to us modern humans, and therefore we can almost say with certainty that Homo heidelbergensis had a proto-language. It's not just as clear with Homo erectus, so for now, we can't be sure. Homo erectus has been credited with the longest reign of any of the other species in the Homo genus. It's actually really quite insane for how long they were around. They emerged around 2 million years ago, and the youngest fossils of Homo erectus, like I said in the very beginning of this video, date to between 117,000 and 108,000 years ago. During the reign of Homo erectus, we had Homo heidelbergensis emerge, we had Homo neanderthalensis emerge, we saw the Denisovans, Homo longi, and even Homo floresiensis and Homo sapiens, us modern humans, emerge. All this was going while Homo erectus was still going strong. Of course, it's unclear why Homo erectus disappeared, just like it's unclear why any of the other species in the Homo genus disappeared. It is possible that Homo heidelbergensis, Homo neanderthalensis, Denisovans, Homo longi, and Homo floresiensis replaced Homo erectus in Africa, Europe, Eurasia, and the youngest fossils of Homo erectus were found on the island of Java in Indonesia. They may have survived there the longest due to less competition from the other Homo species. Climate change may have attributed to the disappearance of Homo erectus as well. They could have possibly adapted less good to the ever-changing climate, and after nearly 2 million years of constant adaptations to their environment, they might have come to a point of just no longer being able to change, It's that simple, unfortunately. Homo erectus is most likely the most important species in the human evolutionary tree of life, and without a doubt, it is one of the most iconic species that eventually led into the evolution of us, Homo sapiens, modern humans. They managed to survive for nearly 2 million years on a planet that changed drastically, with new species slowly overtaking their habitat, animals going extinct due to being hunted, and the climate that kept changing. And we have now seen how important Homo erectus was in the development of many skills. The intelligence of Neanderthals that I spoke about numerous times on my channel started all the way back with Homo erectus, and it shows that we, Homo sapiens, modern humans, are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to intelligence, social skills, and evolution. And yeah, I do expect many funny comments on this video. I've now made quite the collection of videos using certain words, and I just pray someone isn't going to make a weird edit one day. Because I don't need a video of me saying erectus a lot. Thank you. But yeah, there we have it. My new updated version on Homo erectus. What do you think of this enigmatic species? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, click that bell icon if you want to be notified, and if you haven't seen my previous videos yet, then click the card in the upper right corner, or click one of the links in the description down below, or click a video in the end card. I want to thank my patrons and my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me. It truly means the world to me, and it keeps me going. And hopefully soon I will have a new desktop, because my current desktop is really at the end of its life when it comes to editing. I've been using it for 4.5 years. The processor is just old, and yeah. Exporting a video now takes me 5 hours instead of the usual 2. That's fun. But hopefully within a month I'll have a new one. It's fine. I'm saving up money. It's good. Consider joining me on the Turkey tour. I mentioned in the start of this video all the incredible places that we're going to see. Google them. Check out the link of the Turkey tour. Check out the itinerary. And yeah, book your spot. These spots could go fast. I'm not sure how fast it's gonna go. This world is going to the shits. And that's not okay, but at least we can try and make the best of it while we're still here. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!